Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday morning. That means it is time for morning chat and prayer. I hope that you are up and awake and alert and moving around and all that good stuff. I hope that you have your favorite beverage in hand like I do. I don't notice I have had this mug for a really long time. This might be like the original morning chat and prayer mug. I'm not really sure. But anyway, for those of you who have a drink in hand, clink. So glad you're here. Don't mind if I take a sip. How are you doing? If you're here, feel free to leave a message, leave a chat, a comment in the chat, and let me know that you're here. Let me know how you're doing. We are going to have a great few minutes together before we dig into our day. So I'm excited to be here. So last week, if you were at Morning Chat and Prayer last week, if you weren't, just go back and watch it. We started with 3 key ingredients to growth, any kind of growth. So I'm jogging your memory here. Any kind of growth that you want to have, it can be physical, it can be emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, whatever. 3 key ingredients that you're going to need for any type of growth that you want to see in your life. Now, I'll tell you that I have been just transparently, I have been thinking more recently, thinking more about relationships and the relationships in my life. And I don't think that's necessarily like an age thing. Like I don't think it's because of my stage of life. I just think more, and it might be because like this coming weekend we're having a marriage conference at our church, and so I've been thinking more about relationships and not just marriage relationships, though I do have one of those, but all kinds of relationships, thinking more about that and what does it take to have a healthy relationship. So I'll just tell you, as we're talking about these 3 key ingredients, what goes in my mind is the relationships, spiritual relationships, marriage relationships, friendship relationships. So I'm thinking about all of those things. So that's kind of where my mind goes. Your mind can go wherever it wants, but that's where my mind goes. And I'm thinking more about relationships. And today's ingredient has so much to do with relationships and how do we make healthy relationships. Now, you apply it to whatever, but so last week we talked about availability. This week we're going to talk about authenticity. Now, what comes to mind when you think of the word authenticity? Probably words like honesty, maybe not being fake, maybe being real, maybe being transparent, those kinds of words. Those are the words that come to mind when we think about the word authenticity or the idea of authenticity. And I want to share with you from Colossians chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. It says, "Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator." So we have 2 words in this verse that I really want to pull out and kind of play with for a second. The first word is old in terms of like that you have put off the old self. Now, the original word that was used there, it was an adjective, and it didn't just mean like old as in like age or time. It means like worn out. Like you have, in other words, Paul is saying you have kind of worn out that old life. It's no good anymore. It doesn't serve its purpose anymore. So it's worn out. So you got to discard that. You got to get rid of that. And then the second word is renewed. Now that word, the word that Paul used there, it means to renovate and to make new. Now, I love a good like home renovation show. The show Hometown with Ben and Ben and Aaron Napier. Oh, that's one of my favorite shows because they renovate houses, old houses that were dilapidated and worn out. They're renovating them. They're renewing them. They're making them useful and new again. So we have this idea that something is worn out and we got to get rid of it. And then we have this other reality that's happening, that we are being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. So there's a renovation that's going on. Now, you might think, like I do, that that makes me feel like there's a process in place. There's something that's going on that's not just a one and done thing, it's an everyday thing. So, this whole idea of authenticity is something that happens in progression every single day. I don't know that you just snap your fingers and say, now I'm an authentic person. I think it's something that we all kind of grow and evolve in. I want to stop here and I want to point out something that I have observed, and I wonder if you have observed it as well. I haven't heard it so much recently, but it seems like not too very long ago, the term fake, like that seems to be like a term that was thrown around, and it would be leveled at somebody that you think is not being sincere or somebody that you are more accurately, probably somebody you're at odds with. And so it becomes very easy. In fact, it's the easiest route to take to just say, oh, well, they're fake. And what you're really saying from your perspective is that they are inauthentic. They're not being real. They're not being true. They're not being themselves. They're just a fake person. So this whole idea of someone being fake, when you call someone fake, you're saying they're inauthentic. And what you're actually doing is you're probably identifying something about them that you don't like. And so it's easiest, it's a path of least resistance to just call them fake. Because if you can call someone fake, you can just easily dismiss them. And then you don't have to deal with whatever the conflict is, or whatever the situation is. So that's an observation that I have had. I don't know if you have, I don't know if you have observe that like I have, but and maybe you've done it, and maybe you have pointed to somebody and you said, "Well, that person's just fake." Um, and I wonder if, in all the love that I have, I wonder if you can just kind of like just step back and be objective for a second and ask yourself, "Okay, is there something about them that really maybe rubs me the wrong way, or it's not really what I connect with personally, or maybe they did something that was hurtful to me or that I felt was offensive to somebody else or some other." And so the easiest thing to do is just call them fake, not to be reconciled, not to do, and I'm just going to call them fake because when you call somebody fake, you can just be like, oh, I don't have time for that, or I'm going to be dismissive of that. So anyway, okay. Comment here. Somebody asked, "What made you come live to talk about this?" Well, I want to see growth in my own life, and I want to see growth in your life, and everybody's life. And I want us to be intentional about that. Like I said last week, I think sometimes we let growth happen accidentally and just like, well, I'm just living my life. If I grow, whatever. But I would really love for in my life, and if you choose, for you to be intentional and really think through like, what is it going to take for me to grow? So last week we talked about availability. This week we're talking about authenticity. So that's why I came on. And then next week we've got the third of three in this three-parter, and we're going to talk about accountability. So, but today we're talking about authenticity because I really do think it's such a key ingredient to not just healthy relationships, but any way that you want to grow. Okay, so all right, I went on my little rant about the whole like fake thing because when you call somebody fake, you're saying that's I don't think they're being I don't know real, authentic. I don't know. Here's an illustration that I think maybe I think it might work in this situation in terms of authenticity. Okay, let's just say you go into an art gallery and you see an actual Monet painting on across the way, and say you're a good distance. I mean, you see it, you can see it for what it is. You recognize. I mean, I don't know if you know anything about art. Monet has a very distinct style, so you can easily recognize a Monet painting. If not, just Google Monet and you'll be like, oh yeah, it's kind of like this dreamy, wispy, colorful. It's hard to explain, but when you see a Monet, you know it. Okay, so you look from a distance and you're like, oh wow, that's a really beautiful piece of art. But then as you get closer, and if they don't have those velvet ropes up, then you can like get right up like nose to nose with the painting. You're gonna be like, this is a mess. This is a I mean, nothing here makes sense. The closer you get to a Monet painting, the messier it becomes. But then when you look at a distance, you're like, oh, wow, that's a really beautiful thing. And I think it's the same way with relationships. The closer you get to somebody, the more you see like the all the little intricacies and the brush marks and the strokes and the sometimes even the missteps and the mistakes and the things that are not super proud of. But when you stay from a distance, you're like, oh, well, that's a nice thing over there. But then when you do the work of getting really close to somebody, then of course the reality, the actual truth is seen for really what it is. It's not that it didn't exist before. It's that you got closer to that person and you were able to see. And by the way, let's flip this around, and it's the same thing with you. The closer someone gets to you, the more flaws or the more, reality that they see. It's not that you were being inauthentic, it's that they weren't close enough to see like the mistakes. And nobody's perfect, right? So anyway, I thought that illustration might help us kind of like move in the direction of this whole idea of authenticity, because I have seen people just label other people as fake, and I just don't think I don't think that's always the case. I don't think that's always fair. I don't think it's always accurate. I think what happened is you got close enough to see something that they're not probably proud of, or it's just who they are, and it didn't align with who you are, and so you're like, oh, well, that's a fake person. I honestly have yet to meet a fake person. And you might be thinking, like, well, good for you. I know tons of them. But when I really get close enough to be able to talk to somebody and ask them about their story and get to know them, I haven't yet ever met a fake person, someone who seems to be like, I don't know, upholding this facade, whatever. When you can get close enough and kind of get behind that facade, you're like, oh, they're not inauthentic, they're not fake. But anyway, all right, I want to close with this passage that speaks directly to this issue of our own authenticity. Because if you want to grow, you're going to have to be super honest about where you are and who you are. It's like when you go to a mall and you don't, like me, you don't know where the store is that you're looking for. You got to go to the directory and you see that little star on the directory map and it says, you are here. You got to be honest about that. You got to be honest about where you are. You have to be authentic with yourself. Okay, let's look at Matthew 7, 3-5. Here's what it says. Why do you look at the speck of dust in your neighbor's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? First, this is a really great part of it. First, take the plank from your own eye. So if we're going to have authentic relationships, if we're going to grow in an authentic way, we have to first be authentic with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves. You can fool the world out there, but you're not going to grow in any kind of way if you're going to be dishonest with yourself, if you're going to be inauthentic with yourself, with who you are. So first, take the plank from your own eye, and then you will be able to help your neighbor or your brother with the speck in their eye. So it's not I love what Matthew says, it's not a one or the other, because right before this, in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, is a very misunderstood and a very misused verse that says, do not judge or you too will be judged. And so we here in modern America have taken that to mean like, your life is none of my business. And I'm not able to say if there's something unhealthy or wrong. I'm not able to say that. I'm not able to, even in love, I'm not able to point that out in your life. Like that's how we understand that verse. And that's a misapplication of that verse. So we get kind of thinking like, no, you stay in your lane, I'm gonna stay in my lane. You can't tell me what I'm doing is wrong. I can do this, that, whatever. You can't say that I'm wrong or that's unhealthy because you can't judge me. But look at verse 5. First, take the plank from your own eye. See, that's what Jesus is saying. In fact, I didn't mention this one, but he says, first, you hypocrites, take the plank from your own eye. So Jesus gets really real with these guys. Take the plank from your own eye, and then you'll be able to help your neighbor with the speck in their eye. So it's not one or the other, it's both. But first, it's got to be, I'm going to be authentic with me and know who I am and know what I'm about and know what my flaws are and know how God is working on me. And I'm going to be super honest about that with me. And then I can be authentic for other people. So I hope that that's healthy. I hope that that's at least thought provoking and gives you something to think about. All right. That is morning chat and prayer. And I want to say hello to everybody who has come in. Thank you so much for stopping in. It's been good to hang out for a few minutes. I'm going to pray for us, and then we're going to get into this day. Father, thank you for this morning, and thank you for the call that you give to us to just be authentic people, that we can be. We can be free from pretense. We can be free from trying to impress. We can be free from trying to measure up. we can just be authentic because you have made us and you love us and you see us right where we are. So I hope that somebody who watches this video can just receive that message and know how loved they are by you. And Lord, as we interact with other people, I pray that you will just give us the ability to be authentic with them and in our interactions and with our relationships, that we would be really authentic in a healthy way so that we can continue to grow the way you desire for us to grow. Thank you for this time in your word. And I pray for everybody watching this that they would have a wonderful day pointing people to you. In your name, amen. All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining. See you next time.